She was called the backbone of the family, praised, trusted, relied on for everything. But there was one thing nobody in that house ever stopped to question. The morning she decided to stop doing it, 3 phones rang before 8 a.m. And by the end of the day, everything they depended on started to fall apart. Welcome back to Tales by Laju. If you're new here, welcome and stay. This one will stay with you. This is a story about a woman who never raised her voice, she never made a scene, and she never asked for anything back. She just showed up every single time. For years, people around her mistook her silence for submission, her patience for weakness, and her kindness for something they could count on forever. They were wrong. This is a story about Frida and the moment she quietly decided, enough. The morning Frida stopped paying their bills, 3 phones started ringing before 8 o'clock. One was for the electric bill at her father-in-law's second home. One was for her brother-in-law's overdue car note. And one was from Ralph's mother, calling with the same voice she only used when she wanted money and did not want to sound like she was asking for it. By noon, that family that had smiled at Frida for years was sitting in panic. By evening, they were saying the same thing they had always said. Ralph will handle it. That was when Frida finally understood something cruel. They had never loved her for who she was. They loved the door she kept open. And none of them knew she owned the key. Frida had always been the kind of woman people leaned on without even noticing they were doing it. She had warmth in her voice, patience in her spirit, and a quiet way of solving problems before they became disasters. She was not loud. She was not the kind of woman who entered a room and demanded attention. But once she was in your life, things became easier. Meals appeared. Appointments were remembered. Crises were managed. Money stretched farther. People felt safe around her. That was her gift. And for a long time, it was also her weakness. She met Ralph Coleman at a charity dinner in Houston, in a ballroom full of old money, fake smiles, and expensive perfume. Ralph was tall, handsome, polished, and easy to like. He had the calm confidence of a man who had never had to chase too hard for anything in life. He came from a respected family. His father had built a private investment firm. His mother chaired committees and sat at long tables making decisions about museums and hospitals. His younger brother Leon floated from business idea to business idea like a man who believed charm was a profession. His sister Nadine had perfect hair, perfect opinions, and a habit of talking to people as if she were doing them a favor. Ralph was different from them, or at least that was what Frida believed in the beginning. He was kinder, softer, less performative. He listened when she spoke. He laughed from his chest, not from his throat. He admired that she had built her own consulting business from scratch. He loved that she was organized, practical, and warm. He told her once, early in their courtship, "You make chaos sit down and behave." She laughed when he said it, but he was right. Frida came from a Nigerian family that believed love was not just a feeling but a responsibility. Her parents had raised her in Maryland after moving from Lagos in the late 80s. They were comfortable, respected, and deeply disciplined. Her mother taught her that kindness should never mean foolishness. Her father taught her that money had eyes, ears, and memory. Every dollar knows where it came from, he liked to say, and one day it will tell on you. Frida remembered that line many times after she married Ralph. Their wedding was beautiful, expensive, and covered in the kind of tasteful elegance rich people called simple. White roses, a string quartet, crystal glasses that caught the light. The Coleman family welcomed her in public with hugs, speeches, and polished smiles. Ralph's mother, Evelyn, kissed her cheek and said, "You are exactly what this family needs." At the time, Frida thought it was love. Later, she understood it was recognition. They saw in her something useful. The first year of marriage was smooth enough to keep her from asking harder questions. Ralph worked long hours at the family farm. He traveled often. He trusted Frida with everything at home because she was better at domestic systems, as he called them. It started innocently. Could she help his mother find a home nurse after a minor knee surgery? Could she look over a renovation invoice for his father's guest house because the contractor seemed dishonest? Could she help Nadine compare tuition plans for her daughter's private school because she was so good with numbers? Could she remind Leon about deadlines, taxes, payments, forms? Frida did it gladly at first. She loved Ralph and she believed family meant showing up. When Evelyn had a health scare, Frida rearranged her week and sat in waiting rooms. When Ralph's father, Victor, needed help managing medications after a procedure, Frida created schedules, hired support, and checked on him herself. When Nadine's nanny quit with no notice, Frida called 3 agencies and found a replacement in 48 hours. When Leon got himself into trouble with a luxury car lease he could not maintain, Frida helped him bridge the gap until he got back on his feet. He never really got back on his feet. Still, Frida kept going. At first, she assumed Ralph knew how much support she was giving. Why wouldn't he? It was his family. Their emergencies came too often to be invisible. Their needs were too expensive to be unnoticed. But Ralph was always moving, always walking, always trusting. He would kiss her forehead before leaving for the office and say, "Thank you for handling everything. I don't know what I'd do without you." That sentence became the frame around her life. Thank you for handling everything. He did not ask what everything was, and she did not want to burden him. That was how it began. Not with one grand deception, with 100 small silences. Frida had her own money, more than Ralph's family realized. Before marriage, she had sold a healthcare operations company she had built with 2 partners. She did not advertise it. She did not dress like a woman trying to prove a number. She preferred understatement. Ralph knew she had done well, but he had never asked for details, and she had never volunteered them. In his world, money was discussed with advisors, not over breakfast. It worked for her. She liked privacy. The first time she transferred money for Ralph's family, it was $10,000 for Victor's post-surgery care after the insurance dispute delayed payment. Evelyn had been distressed. Ralph was in London. Frida solved it quietly. She expected reimbursement later. Instead, Evelyn hugged her and said, "You saved us." No mention of paying her back. No embarrassment. No hesitation. The second time, it was Leon's car. The third time, it was a deposit for Nadine's daughter's school because Nadine's divorce settlement had temporarily frozen certain accounts. The fourth time, it was household staff for Evelyn and Victor during a difficult month. Then it became routine. Sometimes it was a check. Sometimes it was a wire transfer. Sometimes it was Frida using her business Amex and telling herself she would sort it out later. The requests came wrapped in emotion, never demand. That was what made them dangerous. "Frida, you know how proud your father-in-law is. I hate to ask." "Frida, it's just until Friday." "Frida, Ralph already has so much on his plate." "Frida, you have such a gift for smoothing things over." They rarely asked Ralph directly. At least not once they learned Frida was easier. Not because she was weak, because she cared. And because caring women are often treated like open accounts. Years passed. Frida became the quiet center of the Coleman family machine. She remembered birthdays, booked doctors, sent gifts, arranged dinners, covered shortfalls, and absorbed stress. In return, they praised her constantly. Evelyn called her the daughter I prayed for. Victor told people at functions that Frida had the best head in the family. Nadine posted photos with her and wrote captions about sisterhood. Leon sent her voice notes saying, "You're the real MVP." Everyone appreciated her. As long as she kept giving. Ralph noticed the harmony, but not the cost. To him, Frida and his family had become close, and that made him happy. He saw his mother glowing around Frida, his father calmer, his siblings less dramatic. He thought marriage had blended everybody beautifully. He thought love had done that. He did not know Frida was subsidizing the pace. She tried in the early years to hint at it. Once she told him over dinner, "Your family depends on me a lot." Ralph smiled. "That means they trust you." She held his gaze for a second too long. "It means more than that." But his phone rang and the moment passed. Another time she said, "Leon has expensive problems for someone always between deals." Ralph laughed. "That's Leon. He lands on his feet." Frida looked down at her plate. "Yes," she thought, "because I am the floor." The real turning point came on a Saturday in late spring, nearly 7 years into the marriage. Evelyn was hosting one of her private lunches, the kind where women in silk blouses ate tiny salads and discussed art, schools, and philanthropy like nations depended on it. Frida had stopped by early to help the caterer settle in because of course she had. On her way through the back hallway, she heard voices in the breakfast room. Evelyn, Nadine, and Leon were inside. She would have walked past if she had not heard her own name. "Frida has been useful," Nadine said. "Useful?" Frida stopped. Leon laughed. "More than useful. She's efficient." Ralph hit the jackpot. Evelyn lowered her voice, but not enough. "The best part is she never makes Ralph feel small about it. Men are sensitive. Let him think he is the provider. There is no need to embarrass him." Nadine made a soft sound of agreement. "He really believes all this help comes from the family office. It's almost sweet." Then Evelyn said the sentence that split something open inside Frida. "As long as Frida keeps things flowing, there is no reason to disturb that illusion." Frida stood very still, not shocked that they knew, shocked that they had discussed it, managed it, protected the lie together. Her hands went cold first, then her face, then her chest felt strangely light, as if something inside her had finally stopped struggling and just gone still. She did not walk into that room. She did not confront them. She stepped back, adjusted her face, and went outside through the side entrance. She sat in her car with the engine off and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Useful, keeps things flowing. No reason to disturb that illusion. For 7 years she had thought she was choosing silence to protect Ralph from stress. Now she understood. She had also been protecting everyone else from truth. That afternoon she went home, changed clothes, and opened every file she had. Frida was not careless. Even in love, even in service, she documented things: transfers, receipts, card payments, notes, email threads, medical invoices, tuition confirmations, staff salaries, property tax shortfalls, emergency loans, temporary advances. Every single thing she had paid, covered, arranged, or guaranteed for the Coleman family over the years was somewhere in her records. At first, she reviewed them with disbelief, then with humiliation, then with clarity. The number at the end made her sit back in silence, not because she could not afford it, because she had never forced herself to total it before. The amount was enough to buy a house outright in some parts of the country, enough to fund several college educations, enough to expose exactly what kind of gratitude she had been living inside. That night, Ralph came home late, loosened his tie, kissed her cheek, and asked what was for dinner. Frida looked at him across the kitchen island and saw a man she still loved, but no longer understood. "Ralph," she said, "if your family had a serious money problem, would you tell me?" He looked surprised. "Of course. All of them?" He frowned. "What's this about?" She held his eyes. "One more second," she thought. "One more second and I can tell him everything." But then he said, "Easy and certain. Anyway, they're fine. Dad's advisors keep things tight. Why?" And there it was again. That same blind trust, that same effortless assumption, that same ignorance protected by everybody except the person carrying it. Frida smiled faintly and turned back to the stove. No reason, she said. That was the last day she carried them. She did not announce it. She did not send speeches. She simply stopped. No more emergency wires. No more covered invoices. No more smoothing. No more silent rescue. The first call came 3 days later. Leon, cheerful and careless. Hey Frida, quick one. Can you float me 12 grand till next week? The investor money is delayed. No, she said. He laughed as if she were joking. No, seriously, I am serious. Is everything okay? Yes, so you can't? I won't. He went silent, then recovered with brittle charm. Right, okay, I'll figure it out. The second call came from Nadine 2 days after that. Frida, darling, I hate this, but the school payment portal closes at 5 and... No. Nadine stopped. Excuse me. No, Nadine. There was a long silence, offended and stunned. Did I do something? Frida smiled into the quiet. That's an interesting question. By the next week, Evelyn called. Soft voice, concerned tone. Frida, your father-in-law is under a little pressure. Nothing major, just some timing issues. Could you help with the house manager's payroll? Only for this month. No, Evelyn, is this about liquidity? Because if you need time, it's not about liquidity. Then what is it about? Frida let the silence stretch so long Evelyn had to sit in it. Then she said, I think it is time things flow differently. Evelyn inhaled once, sharply. I see. No, Frida said. You don't. That was Monday. By Tuesday, panic had started. By Wednesday, Ralph noticed. He came home to tension already waiting in the house. His mother had called twice. His brother had left a strange voicemail. Nadine had texted, please call me when you can. It's about Frida. That alone irritated him. People had boundaries. Nadine liked acting as if she did not know that. At dinner, he looked at his wife and said, something weird is going on with my family. Frida cut her salmon carefully. Is it? He set down his fork. Leon says you refuse to help him. Nadine sounded upset. My mom is being cryptic. Did something happen? Frida took a sip of water. Calm, measured, almost gentle. Yes, she said. Something happened. I stopped. Ralph blinked. Stopped what? Taking care of them. He frowned. What does that mean? Frida stood, walked to the study, and returned with a slim black folder. She placed it beside his plate. Ralph looked at it, then at her. What is this? The truth. He opened it slowly at first, then faster. Pages, transfers, statements, invoices, copies of payments, spreadsheet summaries, notes with dates and names. He turned one page, then another, then another. His face changed by stages: confusion, concentration, disbelief, anger, then something worse, shame. What is this? He asked again, but this time his voice had dropped. Frida sat down across from him. 7 years. He stared at a page showing a series of transfers to Leon. You paid this? Yes. He flipped to payroll support for his parents' staff. And this? Yes. Then school fees, medical expenses, property taxes, luxury lease penalties, short-term account coverage, home repairs, security deposits, household management costs, temporary liquidity support. Temporary became recurring. Recurring became expected. Ralph looked up, like a man whose house had moved beneath him. Why didn't you tell me? Frida held his gaze. She had asked herself that question 100 times. At first, I thought you knew. He shook his head slowly. Then I thought you didn't want to know. His jaw tightened. Then I thought I was protecting you. He shot the folder halfway and rubbed a hand over his mouth. My mother knew. Yes. My father? Yes. Nadine and Leon? Yes. His hand dropped. And they let me think he could not finish. Yes, Frida said quietly. They let you think whatever kept this arrangement alive. Ralph stood and paced to the window. then back again. How much? Frida told him. He closed his eyes. For a long moment, the room held only the soft hum of the refrigerator and the sound of Ralph breathing through the weight of humiliation. Finally, he said, "Why now?" Frida answered without drama. "Because I heard them talking." She repeated the words exactly as they had been said. Useful. Keeps things flowing. No reason to disturb that illusion. Ralph did not sit down. He stood there, one hand on the back of the chair, staring at his own family through everything he thought he knew about them. Frida watched his face harden, not with quick anger, but with something deeper. A man realizing he had been handled. He looked at her. "And you?" Frida did not look away. "I am done being useful." The meeting happened 2 nights later at Evelyn and Victor's house. Nobody wanted it, which was exactly why it had to happen. Ralph called it himself. No assistants, no family office staff, no soft delays, just a direct message to all of them. "Be here at 7. We are discussing finances. Frida will be present." That last sentence changed the temperature before anyone even arrived. They gathered in the same breakfast room where Frida had overheard them. Evelyn composed in cream silk, Victor stern and irritated, Nadine defensive before anyone had spoken, Leon trying to play relaxed and failing badly. Frida entered last with Ralph and sat down quietly, a single folder in front of her. No one smiled at her. Good, she thought. We are finally in the truth. Victor began with offense. "I don't appreciate the tone of this summons." Ralph did not sit. "You'll appreciate this less." He opened the folder and placed copies in front of each of them. The room changed. Papers shifted, eyes moved, mouths tightened. Leon reached the anger stage first. "What is this, some kind of audit?" "It is a record," Frida said calmly, "of what I paid on behalf of this family." Nadine looked up sharply. "On behalf? That is a very loaded phrase." Frida turned to her. "Not nearly as loaded as the accounts." Evelyn put down her pages with controlled care. "Frida, if this is about gratitude." "It is not," Frida said. Ralph's voice cut through the room, colder than Frida had ever heard it. "It is about deception." Silence. Victor straightened. "No one deceived you." Ralph gave a short, humorless laugh. "Really? For years my wife has been funding crises, bills, staffing, personal expenses, and lifestyle gaps for this family, and all of you knew. All of you. And I was never told." Leon spread his hands. "It wasn't like that. How was it?" Ralph snapped. No one answered. Frida watched them carefully. For the first time, they looked like people without a script. Evelyn tried next. "We never intended harm." Frida was generous. She offered. Frida's voice stayed even. "No," I responded. Repeatedly. "There is a difference." Nadine leaned back, offended. "You are rewriting history." Frida looked at her with quiet precision. "Am I? Would you like me to read your messages out loud?" Nadine went still. Ralph turned to his mother. "Did you say there was no reason to disturb the illusion?" Evelyn's face changed just slightly. There it was, recognition. Victor looked at her, then at Ralph. "This family has always handled things internally." Ralph's eyes were on his father now. "By letting my wife cover them? By leaning on resources available to us," Victor said. Frida almost smiled. Resources. That was the language of people who wanted money without responsibility. Ralph sat down at last, but not to soften. He sat like a man beginning something final. "Here is what happens now," he said. "No one contacts Frida for money again, ever. Any outstanding obligations owed to her will be documented and repaid on the terms set by legal counsel." Leon stared. "Legal counsel? Yes, this is family." Ralph leaned forward. "Then maybe you should have treated it that way." Nobody spoke after that, because there was nothing left to hide behind. Frida sat in the middle of that silence and felt something unfamiliar rise in her chest. Not victory. Relief. Pure, clean relief. The family meeting ended without hugs, without resolution, without performance. Nadine left first, furious. Leon followed, muttering. Victor withdrew into the kind of silence proud men use when reality insults them. Evelyn was the last to stand. She looked at Frida with wounded dignity, as if she too had been wronged by truth. After all these years, she said quietly, I did love you. Frida met her eyes. I know, just not enough to be honest. Evelyn had no answer for that. In the weeks that followed, the Coleman family changed shape. Distance replaced dependency. Calls became formal. Requests stopped. Stories shifted. People who once spoke of Frida like beloved furniture now referred to her carefully, as if she might expose the room. Some money was repaid quickly out of embarrassment. Some had to be pursued through lawyers. Some would likely never return. Frida accepted that. This was no longer about recovering every dollar. It was about ending access disguised as affection. The greater question was Ralph. For a while, the marriage moved through bruised silence, not because they hated each other, because truth had a sound, and once heard, it did not fade easily. Ralph struggled with the humiliation of not knowing. Frida struggled with the ache of having carried so much alone. Love remained, but innocence did not. One night, about a month later, Ralph found her in the library reviewing contracts. He stood in the doorway for a moment and said, I keep replaying it. Frida looked up. What part? He gave a tired smile. All of it. Them. Me. You doing all that while I thought I was being a good husband because the house was calm. She closed the laptop. Ralph stepped inside. I failed you. Frida let the words settle before answering. Yes. He nodded once, accepting it because he had earned it. Then she stood and walked toward him. But I failed myself first, she said. I kept choosing peace over truth. Ralph looked at her like a man hearing the full cost of love. No more, she said. He shook his head. No more. That was the beginning. Not of a perfect healing. Not of some soft ending where everybody learned and grew and became better people by Sunday. Life is rarely that neat, but it was the beginning of something stronger than politeness. Clarity. Frida rebuilt the terms of her own life after that. She moved money into structures only she controlled. She set boundaries that did not bend because someone was elderly, charming, or family. She stopped solving grown people's private disasters. She let discomfort do its work. She let silence expose character. She let consequences arrive without intercepting them. And for the first time in years, she rested. Not because life became easy, because it became honest. The strange thing was, once Frida stopped carrying everybody, she finally saw how heavy they had all been. The mother-in-law who called it love when she meant access. The father-in-law who wrapped dependency in pride. The siblings who had mistaken her kindness for a system. Even Ralph, good-hearted and blind, had leaned on her competence like it was air. But air deserves respect too. The next holiday season was smaller, quieter. No grand family gathering at the Coleman estate. No polished photos with hidden resentments. Frida and Ralph stayed home. They hosted a simple dinner for close friends. Candles glowed. Music played softly. Nobody asked for anything except seconds. Late that night, after the last guest left, Ralph stood in the kitchen, watching Frida wrap leftovers. You know, he said, my mother used to say you were exactly what this family needed. Frida smiled without looking up. She was right. He came closer. She just didn't know that one day what the family needed would be a mirror. Frida finally looked at him then. Outside, the house was quiet. Inside, the truth sat with them. No longer ugly, just clear. That was enough. Because in the end, Frida had not destroyed that family. She had only stopped rescuing them from themselves. And once she did, everybody learned the same hard lesson at once. The money had never been the point. The point was that they had built comfort on the back of one woman's silence. And the day she withdrew it, everything false began to shake. And this is the story of Frida, a woman who never fought back with noise. She fought back with stillness. And in the end, that was the most powerful thing she could have done. If this story made you feel something, or you saw yourself in Frida, or you know somebody that it has happened to, please let me know and drop your comments in the comment section. And if you're not already part of the Tales by Laju family, please subscribe, because every week I drop a story. Stories like this, story that makes you think, story that makes you feel, stories that stay with you long after it is over. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.